AITA for exposing my sister after our dad tried to gift her my condo? My name is Megan. I am 29 years old and this is my story. 2 years ago I got a promotion at work. I am with a consulting firm in Denver called Whitaker Consulting. I remember the day of the promotion as if it were this morning. My boss called me into his office, and I was sure something had gone wrong with the report. I walked in with my stomach in knots, mentally running through everything that could have gone wrong in recent months. Instead of scolding me, he handed me a new contract with a much higher salary. He told me I had earned it through sheer hard work and that he trusted me with bigger projects. That day, leaving the office, I felt like the world was opening up just a little. From then on, I made a decision that sounded extreme to many. I started living almost like a nun. No expensive clothes, no dinners at nice restaurants. I forgot about weekend trips, impulsive outings, and silly indulgences. Every extra dollar that hit my account went into a separate savings account that I treated almost like an altar. That account became my obsession, but it was not just that. A year ago, my grandmother Eleanor died suddenly. She was my mom's mom, the only person who truly supported me when my own house became a hostile place. She died of a stroke in her sleep quietly, as if she did not want to bother anyone, even at the very end. In her will, she left her house to my cousins who lived nearby and always helped her with everything. To me, she left $150,000. It was her life savings, money she had kept so it would not be eaten away by inflation. In a letter, she wrote that it was for the granddaughter who reminds me so much of my daughter, Elizabeth. That sentence pierced my chest. I cried alone in my bed with the envelope in my hand. Between that money and everything I had already saved, the impossible began to seem probable. I sat down with a spreadsheet, a cold coffee in my hand, and the calculator next to my phone. I ran the numbers for days. I compared condo prices in different neighborhoods. I talked to a couple of friends who were already saddled with mortgages until one day I saw the ad. A 2-bedroom condo in a quiet neighborhood, relatively close to downtown and several universities. Not too big, not too small. Just right. I went to see it on a rainy afternoon. The doorman looked at me as if he thought I was in the wrong building. The hallway smelled of cleaning products and a neighbor's cooking, like all the older buildings in the city. When I entered the condo, the real estate agent started her prepared speech talking about the view, the light, the potential to create a home. I barely listened to her. I walked from the living room to the kitchen, placed my hand on the window frame, and opened a random drawer just to hear the sound it made. I felt something in my chest, a very clear click. I knew this was it. Best of all, the price was an almost perfect match for my savings and my grandmother's inheritance. Most people in my situation would have taken out a mortgage. I did not want to owe a single dollar to any bank. When I told the agent I wanted to pay in cash, she did a double take, as if she had misunderstood, and even checked the papers again. When I finished signing and she handed me the keys, the look on her face was an extra gift. I could not help it. As soon as I left the building, I started taking pictures. Photos of the door, of the empty living room, of the tiny bathroom with older tiles, of the view of the neighborhood full of brick homes and tree-lined streets. I uploaded several to my social media without much thought. First home of my own, I wrote with an emoji that made me feel a little embarrassed. And then the avalanche of reactions began. Congratulations, Megan. You are living the dream. When is the housewarming party? I read the comments with a goofy smile on my face. It felt good to see so many people genuinely happy for me. For the first time, I felt like I was not trailing behind anyone, or asking for permission, or occupying a borrowed corner. That same day, while I was still walking through the empty condo, figuring out where each piece of furniture would go, my phone rang. I saw the name on the screen and my stomach clenched. It was my dad, Stephen. Megan, he said, his voice as dry as ever. I need you to come for lunch next Saturday. Just that. No, how are you? No, congratulations on the condo. That call brought back everything I had been trying to forget for years. My mom, Elizabeth, died when I was 9. Cancer. I still remember the smell of the hospital, the hushed conversations in the hallway, the sound of the oxygen machine. When she was gone, Our home shattered into 1,000 pieces. But my dad did not stay alone for long. In less than a year, he was married to another woman, Deborah. And a year after the wedding, my half-sister, Kelsey, was born. Deborah was never very fond of me, even before she had her own daughter. But when Kelsey came along, things got truly worse. Suddenly, there were a bunch of new rules in the house. Funnily enough, they all seemed to apply only to me. Megan, you need to speak more quietly. Megan, you cannot bring friends over. Megan, turn that music down right now. Meanwhile, Kelsey grew up surrounded by attention. If new clothes arrived at the house, they were for her. If a trendy toy came out, Kelsey had it before she could even ask. Outings, vacations, schedules, everything was organized around her agenda. I started to feel like a ghost in my own home. I lived there, but it was as if I did not count. Thank goodness for my grandmother Eleanor. I do not know if I would have survived those years without her. As things got heavier at my dad's house, I spent more time at my grandmother's place. She lived about a 15 or 20-minute drive away in an old but quiet neighborhood. Her door was always open for me. Literally, I would arrive, knock lightly, and she would shout from the kitchen, "Come on in, sweetie, I am making coffee." Her home became my refuge. My cousins Marcus, Hannah, and little Logan were almost always there. They were my Aunt Tina's kids, my mom's sister. Unlike Kelsey, they treated me like family. We spent hours playing board games at the dining room table. We watched old movies on the TV with the volume a little too loud. We would lie in the backyard talking about anything and everything while Eleanor watered her plants. There, no one told me I was too loud or too anything. I was just me. Meanwhile, at my dad's house, everything deteriorated. Kelsey turned into a nightmare. She would hide my things right before I needed them. She would accidentally spill juice on my homework. She started spreading rumors about me at school, and somehow the blame was always mine. "Megan, why are you making your sister cry?" Deborah would ask, her arms crossed. "Megan, stop bothering Kelsey," my dad would say, without even hearing my side. I tried to explain that it was the other way around, that she was making my life impossible. But my words hit a wall made of favoritism, blame, and willful blindness. I started to keep quiet. The day my university acceptance letter arrived was, without exaggeration, one of the happiest days of my life. Not just because of the university itself. Though a partial scholarship was a huge achievement in my situation, it was happy because it meant something much more important. I could finally leave. I could get away from that house where I was always in the way. The university was in another city, several hours' drive from Denver. It was not the most glamorous place in the world, but to me it was freedom. My grandmother Eleanor helped me pay for everything the scholarship did not cover. Books, tuition, a small room and student housing. She crunched the numbers, sold a few things, and tightened her own budget. "This is your chance," she told me. "Do not let it pass you by." University was like breathing fresh air after years underwater. I focused on my studies with an almost obsessive discipline. I called my grandmother at least twice a week, telling her everything. She would laugh, give me advice, and ask if I was eating well. I heard almost nothing from my dad. He called very rarely. When he did, the conversations were short, cold, and superficial. He had a lot of work and a lot of things going on with Kelsey, his real daughter. After graduating, I had to return to Denver. I got a very good job offer at Whitaker Consulting, and it would have been foolish to turn it down. I figured that while I found a place to live, I could stay with my dad and Deborah for a few weeks. It was the logical thing to do. In the end, I was still his daughter. I called to let them know my plans. "Oh, Megan, we gave your room to Kelsey," Deborah said with that fake sweet voice she always used with me. "She needs more space for her things. You understand, right?" My dad was there. I could hear him breathing in the background. He did not say a single word to defend me. Not one. Luckily, Eleanor once again opened her door to me without any questions. I settled back into her house, just like when I was a teenager. Soon after, with my new job, I managed to save enough to rent a tiny apartment. It was not much, but it was mine. For the first time, having the key to a door made me feel safe. And then, a year ago, my grandmother died. It was quick, early one morning. stroke, and she was gone. No dramatic goodbyes, no long illnesses. The burial was tough on everyone, but for me, it felt like someone had ripped out the last pillar holding up my life. She was my family. In her will, she did something that made perfect sense. She left the house to my cousins, who lived nearby and always kept her company. To me, she left $150,000. With that note about how much I reminded her of her daughter, Elizabeth. That money did not fall from the sky. It was the result of years of work, sacrifice, and care. The last year was very quiet. My dad and his perfect family barely communicated with me. They did not even invite me to spend Christmas at their house. I cannot say I was surprised. I spent it with my Aunt Tina and my cousins, eating a big holiday meal with roasted ham, casseroles, and pies in the living room. It was the best Christmas I had had in years. And then came the new condo, the photos on social media, and my dad's call. That Saturday, I headed to his house with a knot in my stomach. The closer I got to their neighborhood, the tighter the pressure in my chest felt. I checked my watch. It was a few minutes before noon. I was still early. But I preferred that to giving Deborah another excuse to criticize me. I rang the doorbell and counted the seconds. My dad opened the door. His face was serious, unreadable. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. No hug, no smile. I found them all in the living room. Deborah, sitting in her favorite armchair with her legs crossed like a queen on her leather throne. Kelsey sprawled on the sofa, scrolling on her phone with her thumb moving non-stop. Deborah barely acknowledged me with a curt nod. Kelsey did not even look up. "Sit," my dad said, pointing to a single chair facing them. I sat down, feeling like I was being seated in an interrogation room. The silence was so thick you could cut it. My dad cleared his throat once, twice before speaking. "Kelsey graduated from high school," he announced, as if I had not already seen it on social media. He stared at me, waiting for something. Logically, I should have congratulated her, I guess. The problem was, they never invited me to the graduation. Not even a text. "That is great," I said finally, carefully. "I am happy for her." "She is going to university," he continued, not catching the slightest bit of my irony, "a private university, right here in the city." I nodded, still not understanding where this was going. Did he want me to buy her a gift? Pitch in for tuition? I had no idea. "She needs a place to live," he went on, staring at a point above my head, something close to the university. Deborah nodded beside him like one of those dashboard bobbleheads, a cold smile on her face. "And well," my dad shifted uncomfortably on the sofa, "your condo would be perfect." "I am not looking to share a condo with anyone," I said slowly. I was still trying to process the idea. I thought they wanted Kelsey to stay with me for a while, maybe pay some rent. An awkward but at least debatable proposition. "You are not understanding, Megan," my dad said, finally looking me in the eye. "We are not asking you to let her live with you." "Then what?" I asked, though a part of me already knew. "We are asking you to give your condo to Kelsey," he said, as if he were stating something perfectly reasonable. I laughed. It was a short, dry laugh that died in my throat when I saw their faces. They were not joking. They were completely serious. "Give her my condo?" I repeated, sure I had misheard. "Hand over my home? The one I just bought?" "Yes," my dad said in a firm tone, like a tired teacher explaining the obvious to a slow student. "Kelsey needs it more than you do. You are alone, no kids, and that place is big for one person." I stared at them, trying to understand in what parallel reality this made any sense. My condo, the place I had counted every dollar for years. The one I was able to buy thanks to my grandmother Eleanor's sacrifice. "She deserves it more than you," Deborah added, her voice laced with venom. "After all, what have you done to deserve a place like that? Living alone in a 2-bedroom condo. While my poor Kelsey has to think about living in a student dorm." I stood up so fast the chair almost fell backward. "Have you lost your mind?" I asked, my voice much firmer than I expected. "I am not giving away my condo. Not now, not ever. I bought it with my money." My dad's face hardened. "Your money?" he repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Your grandmother gave you $150,000. That is not exactly your money." Something inside me broke at that moment. Years of staying quiet, of putting up with it, of being the mature one, of not making a scene to avoid making things worse. All of it came crashing down. My grandmother? I asked with a joyless laugh. You mean my mom's mother? The woman who was there for me when you were too busy playing happy family with your new wife and your new daughter? That grandmother? Kelsey finally looked up from her phone, at the exact moment I knew she would. Her face twisted into that expression I knew so well, the one that always came right before the crocodile tears. You are a horrible sister, she whimpered, as if she had rehearsed it. You have always been mean to me. You have never loved me. Megan, my dad said, his voice hard, this is not how we raised you. You did not raise me, I exploded. You checked out the day my mom died. From the moment Deborah moved in, I ceased to exist for you. Do not you dare talk about how you raised me. I grabbed my purse and walked toward the door, my hands trembling. Behind me, I could hear Kelsey's exaggerated sobs, Deborah's soft words consoling her, and my dad calling my name. I did not stop. I had to get out of that house. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The next morning my phone rang again. It was my dad. I answered after the third ring, not sure why. Megan, listen to me, he began without even a greeting. You are the older sister. You have to help Kelsey. That is what family does. I almost laughed. Family? I repeated. You really want to talk about family? Where was this family spirit when Deborah kicked me out of my room? When Kelsey was making my life hell? When you did not even invite me for Christmas? That is different, he insisted. You are being irrational. Kelsey needs you. What you people need is a therapist, I said with no filter. You are crazy if you think I am going to give my condo to someone who has done everything possible to ruin my life. Do not call me about this again. I hung up, but it was not over. A few minutes later, Deborah's texts started coming in. You have always been jealous of Kelsey. You are just like your mother, selfish and ungrateful. After everything we have done for you. I read the messages with a calmness that surprised me. It was as if I was finally seeing something clearly that had always been there. I stopped answering calls and messages from my dad. What was the point of repeating the same thing over and over? A week later, I went ahead with my plan for a housewarming party. I filled my living room with the people who truly mattered, friends from work, college buddies, my cousins Marcus, Hannah, and Logan. The sound of laughter, the music at a reasonable volume, the overlapping conversations, it all felt like a cleansing ritual. As if each laugh was expelling a bit of the poison I had swallowed the previous weekend. Megan, Hannah shouted from the kitchen. We are almost out of ice. I was heading toward the fridge when Marcus grabbed my arm. He had a serious expression, which was rare for him, a perpetual jokester. I need to show you something, he murmured, guiding me toward the hallway. You had better be sitting down for this. I sat on the edge of the new ottoman, still holding my drink. Marcus took out his phone, hesitated for a moment, and then handed it to me. I was at Mario's restaurant last night with some friends, he explained. Look who was in a booth in the back. The first photo took my breath away. There was Deborah, my stepmother, sitting in a dimly lit restaurant. She was not alone. A man I had never seen before had his arm around her. In the photo they were kissing. Not a quick friendly peck, but one that showed clear affection. In the following photos, Deborah was laughing, her hand on the man's chest. He was feeding her dessert with a small spoon. In another, their fingers were intertwined on the table. They looked comfortable, intimate, like people who had been doing this for years. I know I should not have taken pictures, Marcus mumbled. Send them to me, I interrupted, my voice barely a whisper. Please. When the last guest left and the condo fell silent, I turned off the lights and sat alone in the living room. I had the photos on my phone in a chat with Marcus. I looked at them one by one, my heart pounding. Who was this man? I had to know. It did not take long to find him. Deborah is not exactly discreet on social media. He was on her friends list. His name was Richard Bennett. I opened his profile and felt the floor shift slightly. His bio said he had worked at River Valley Insurance for 20 years. The same insurance company where Deborah had worked since before marrying my dad. The same one where, according to her, everyone was like a family. I started scrolling through his photos. There were pictures from company outings, holiday parties, office birthdays. And in many of them, there she was, sometimes in the background, sometimes half cut off, but it was Deborah. A photo from 15 years ago stopped me. In a park on a bench, he was sitting next to a woman in a red dress. Her face was turned away, but I recognized the haircut, the shape of her shoulders, even that dress. Deborah still had it hanging in the closet at my dad's house. The caption read, "Perfect Sunday." 3 years after she married my dad. I opened another tab. I searched for recent photos of Kelsey. A smile at a school party, a selfie in her bedroom mirror. I looked at her more closely than ever before. Then I looked back at Richard's face on my screen. Those eyes, that nose. The way the corner of his mouth turned up slightly even when he was not fully smiling. I put the two photos side by side. The resemblance was brutal. Kelsey looked nothing like my dad. I had never truly noticed it before, but she was almost a carbon copy of Richard Bennett. For 2 days I walked through the world in a daze. I went to the office, answered emails, did what I had to do, but in my head the photos, the years, the gestures were fitting together into a sinister puzzle. It made me sick. 20 years of deception and my dad completely blind. When his name appeared on my phone screen again, I almost did not answer. But something inside me said I should. "We need to talk seriously," he said. With that authoritative voice he always used when he remembered he was my father. "Come to the house. Now." I thought about telling him everything right then, dropping the bomb over the phone. Telling him that Deborah had been involved in an inappropriate relationship with another man for 2 decades, and that Kelsey was not his daughter. A strange instinct stopped me. "I will be there in 20 minutes, I said. This time it was just him and Deborah in the living room. Kelsey was nowhere to be seen. I sat in the same chair as last time. "Sit down, Megan," my dad ordered. I obeyed. He did not waste time on pleasantries. "Your behavior has been very disappointing," he began, pacing in front of the unlit fireplace. "This selfishness, this refusal to help your sister, it has to end." I glanced at Deborah, who was nodding enthusiastically with a half-smile that now made my stomach turn. The audacity of that woman was breathtaking. "I have made a decision," my dad continued, locking his eyes on me. "Either you sign the condo over to Kelsey, or I am cutting you out of my will. No inheritance, nothing. Your entire share will go to Kelsey, my real daughter, the one who understands what family is." Deborah smiled openly, triumphant. They really thought they had me backed into a corner. I took a deep breath, letting my face show exactly what they wanted to see: shock, pain. "I need to think about it," I whispered, letting myself seem small, defeated. Deborah's smile grew even wider. "Good girl," my dad said condescendingly. "Take your time to think about what really matters." "Can I use the bathroom first?" I asked, lowering my voice. He waved a hand like someone shooing away a fly. I went upstairs slowly, feeling their eyes on my back. But I did not go to the bathroom. I slipped into Kelsey's room, my old room. Everything was pink and perfect. The walls were covered with photos, fairy lights, travel mementos. On her vanity was her hairbrush, full of strands of her long dark hair. I took a small plastic bag with a ziplock from my purse. My hands were trembling slightly. I carefully took several hairs and saved them. I left without a sound and went into my dad's room. His comb was in the same place as always, on the dresser next to his wedding photo with Deborah. The irony almost made me laugh. I put some of his hairs in another bag. That same night I looked for labs online. I needed one that did legally admissible paternity tests, one that could be used in a divorce proceeding if it came to that. The cost for a rush result was nearly $2,000. It was nearly a month's salary, maybe 2. I paid it without hesitation. The next morning I went to the lab with my 2 well-labeled bags. The technician explained the process calmly, as if I might break at any moment. I signed papers, left my details, and listened to an explanation about percentages of certainty. They promised to have the results in a few weeks. When the white envelope arrived, my hands were shaking. I knew what it was going to say: but a part of me still clung to the slimmest margin of doubt. I opened it carefully. The language was cold, clinical. The alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the tested child. The probability of paternity is 0%. At that moment, as if on cue, my phone rang. It was Deborah. "We are tired of waiting," she snapped without a greeting. "Your father and I need your decision about the condo this week. If not, forget about the inheritance." I kept my voice firm, calm. "I have been thinking about everything," I said. "I will come for dinner on Saturday. We can talk about it in person." On Saturday night, I returned to that house. The DNA test was folded in my purse, tucked inside the same envelope. This time, the knot in my stomach was not anxiety. It was anticipation. They were all in the living room. Deborah was practically glowing with happiness. Kelsey was lounging on the sofa, examining her nails with a little smirk. My dad was leaning against the fireplace with the posture of a judge about to deliver a verdict. Finally, Kelsey mumbled when she saw me, "Took you long enough to get it." My dad stepped toward me and put a hand on my shoulder. "I am glad you have had a change of heart, Megan," he said. "This is what family does. They help each other." I pulled away from his hand. "I have not had a change of heart," I replied. "I am not giving up my condo, not now, not ever." "You selfish girl," he yelled, his face turning red. "That is it. You are out of my will. Everything will go to Kelsey, my real daughter, the one who understands family loyalty." I could not help it. I laughed. The sound bounced off the living room walls. The three of them stared at me as if I had gone mad. "Your real daughter," I repeated calmly. "How interesting that you used those words." I reached into my purse and pulled out the white envelope. "I have something you need to read," I said, holding it out to him. He snatched it from my hand with a brusque gesture. He pulled out the pages with quick, annoyed movements. "Read it out loud," I requested without raising my voice. He began to read. "Report of DNA relationship testing," he mumbled, still confident, not yet understanding. Suddenly, his face began to change. The color drained from his skin, and his hands started to shake. Deborah made a strange sound like she had been punched in the stomach. This is a lie," she shrieked suddenly. "She forged these documents. She is trying to turn you against me, against us." "I have more proof," I said slowly. I took out my phone as Deborah continued to ramble about forgeries and setups. I opened the photos Marcus had sent me. I held the phone out at a distance where they could all see. The room fell silent. There was Deborah, sharing an intimate moment with Richard Bennett at Mario's restaurant. The photo was dated from the previous week. Deborah collapsed onto the sofa as if her legs had been cut out from under her. The mask of superiority she had worn for all those years fell away in seconds. "Stephen, I can explain," she sobbed. "It is not what it looks like." "Explain what?" My dad roared with a voice I had never heard from him. "How long?" 20 years, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "He is my colleague at River Valley Insurance. Kelsey. Kelsey is Richard's daughter." The silence that followed was absolute. I could see my dad's world crumbling in real time. 20 years of lies, one collapsing on top of the other. Without another word, I picked up my purse. I walked to the door. I left them there, in the middle of their ruins. The following week passed in slow motion. I went to work. I came home to my condo, washed dishes, bought groceries, watched TV shows without really seeing them. News about them reached me through other people. That Deborah and Kelsey had left the house. That my dad had hired the best divorce attorney in the city. That the gossip had spread like wildfire among their friends. A week later, his name appeared on my screen again. Again I hesitated. Again I answered. "Can we meet?" he asked. His voice sounded hoarse, tired. I agreed. We met at a cafe near the city center called the Outlook Cafe. When I arrived, he was already sitting at a corner table with a cold cup of coffee in front of him. He looked 10 years older. Unshaven, his shoulders slumped, the wedding ring gone from his hand. "I filed for divorce," he said bluntly. "Deborah and Kelsey are gone. I told them to get out of my house." He stared at his cup. "I also stopped paying for Kelsey's university," he added. Why should I keep supporting another man's daughter? I said nothing. I stirred my latte with a small spoon, looked at him and waited. Megan. His voice broke. I have been a terrible father to you. Yes, I replied without anger. You have. All these years I chose Kelsey over you, he continued, his gaze fixed on the table. I let Deborah treat you like a stranger in your own home. I did not defend you. I was not there for you. I failed at everything that mattered. That is true, I said. If you had not shown me that test, I never would have realized it, he admitted. If Kelsey had really been my daughter, I would have kept treating you like a second-class citizen. I would have taken your condo from you without a second thought. I would have given it to her without hesitation. He winced hearing his own words. He did not deny them. Please, he said, reaching his hand toward mine. Give me a chance to do better. Let me try to be the father I should have been from the start. I pulled my hand back before he could touch it. Not roughly, I just moved it away. That was 3 months ago. Since then we have seen each other a few times. A quick coffee after work. A weekday lunch at a simple restaurant. We talk cautiously like people walking on eggshells. He is trying to make up for lost time. He tells me stories about my mom that he had never wanted to tell me before. He asks about my work, my friends, the plans I have for the condo. I answer, but with a certain distance. Complete forgiveness has not come yet. I do not know if it ever will. 20 years of rejection and indifference leave deep scars. They do not fade in 3 months. Maybe they never will. As for Deborah and Kelsey, I sometimes hear bits and pieces, that they went to live with Richard Bennett, that they are now forming the family they always wanted, that the DNA gossip is still making the rounds in my dad's social circle. Honestly, I do not care anymore. They are part of a chapter that has closed, one that hurt, that made me doubt my own worth, that stole my childhood and adolescence, but that also taught me to hold on to the little that is mine. Now, when I close the door to my 2-bedroom condo, I feel something different. Not just pride, but peace. It is my home. I paid for it with my own hard work and with the love of a grandmother who truly saw me. Finally, I am not taking anyone's place. Finally, I am not asking for permission. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.